Barron Trump sacrifices his life to save his father Donald Trump from shooter. The cool autumn breeze swept through the gathered crowd as former President Donald Trump took the stage. Thousands of supporters cheered, their voices rising into the night sky. Trump, his signature red tie contrasting against his crisp white shirt, waved to the sea of faces before him. Backstage, 18-year-old Barron Trump watched his father with a mix of pride and apprehension. He had grown accustomed to the fervor surrounding his father's rallies, but something felt different tonight. A sense of unease lingered in the air. As Donald began his speech, his words resonating with the crowd, Barron's eyes scanned the audience. He noticed a man in a dark hoodie, his face obscured, moving closer to the stage. Barron's instincts screamed danger, but before he could act, a deafening shot rang out. Chaos erupted. Screams filled the air as people ducked for cover. Secret Service agents swarmed the stage, their eyes searching for the shooter. But Barron saw only his father, standing frozen in disbelief. Without hesitation, Barron leaped forward, his long legs carrying him towards his father. Time seemed to slow as he threw himself in front of Donald, his arms outstretched. The second shot hit Barron square in the chest, the force knocking him backward into his father's arms. Donald's eyes widened in horror as he caught his son, lowering him gently to the ground. "Barron," he cried, his voice raw with anguish. "Stay with me, son. Stay with me." But Barron's eyes were already fluttering closed, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The last thing he saw was his father's face, etched with a pain he had never seen before. The world watched in stunned silence as the news broke. Images of Barron's sacrifice played on every television screen, his bravery captured in heartbreaking detail. People of all political affiliations found themselves united in their concern for the young man who had given everything to protect his father. In the hospital, Donald sat at Barron's bedside, his hand clutching his son's. Melania, her eyes red-rimmed from crying, stood beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. The beeping of the machines filled the room, a constant reminder of Barron's fragile state. Doctors worked tirelessly to save Barron's life, but the prognosis was grim. The bullet had done severe damage, and he had lost a lot of blood. They warned the family to prepare for the worst. As Barron lay in a coma, fighting for his life, the country grappled with the aftermath of the shooting. The suspect, a troubled man with a history of mental illness, was quickly apprehended. But the questions remained. How had this happened? And why had Barron been the one to pay the price? Donald found himself consumed with guilt. He had always put his career first, often at the expense of his family. Now, faced with the possibility of losing his youngest son, he realized how much he had taken for granted. In the quiet moments at Barron's bedside, Donald began to reflect on his life, his choices, and the legacy he wanted to leave behind. He thought of all the times he had been too busy to attend Barron's school events, too distracted to really listen to his son's dreams and fears. Days turned into weeks, and still, Barron remained in a coma. The world continued to watch, holding vigil for the young man who had captured their hearts. Flowers, cards, and gifts poured in from around the globe, a testament to the impact of Barron's selfless act. Inside the hospital, the Trump family kept constant watch. Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric took turns sitting with their little brother, reading to him, talking to him, willing him to wake up. Tiffany flew in from California, her studies abandoned in the face of the family crisis. Even little Arabella, Ivanka's daughter, found ways to bring comfort. She drew pictures for her uncle, taping them to the walls of his hospital room. Her innocent love and unwavering faith touched everyone who saw it. As the weeks dragged on, Donald found himself spending more and more time at the hospital. He canceled meetings, postponed rallies, and delegated responsibilities. For the first time in his life, something was more important than his own ambition. He began to see his son in a new light. He marveled at Barron's strength, his resilience in the face of such a devastating injury. He listened as the doctors described the progress Barron was making, the small signs that gave them hope. And in those long hours at the hospital, Donald began to change. He started to question the priorities that had driven him for so long. He thought about the kind of father he had been, the kind of father he wanted to be. Slowly, miraculously, Barron began to improve. His vital signs stabilized, and the doctors cautiously expressed optimism about his chances for recovery. The news spread like wildfire, and the nation celebrated. But the road ahead was long. Even as Barron regained consciousness, it was clear that he would need extensive rehabilitation. His body had been through a tremendous trauma, and he would have to relearn even the most basic skills. The Trump family rallied around him, determined to support him every step of the way. They hired the best therapists, the most innovative treatments. They transformed a wing of their Mar-a-Lago estate into a state-of-the-art rehabilitation center. And through it all, Donald was there. He sat with Barron through grueling physical therapy sessions, cheering him on as he struggled to take his first steps. He read to him, played games with him, and listened as Barron shared his fears and frustrations. As Barron's recovery progressed, the world began to see a different side of Donald Trump. He spoke openly about his son's bravery, his selflessness. He talked about the lessons he had learned, the importance of family and love. He even reached out to his political opponents, inviting them to visit Barron, to see the progress he was making. In the face of such a personal tragedy, old rivalries seemed petty and insignificant. And slowly, something began to shift. People who had once been his harshest critics found themselves moved by his vulnerability, his humanity. They saw a father who would do anything for his child, a man who had been humbled by a love greater than himself. Months passed, and Barron grew stronger every day. He graduated from a wheelchair to a walker, from a walker to a cane. He relearned how to dress himself, feed himself, and even write his name. And through it all, he never lost his spirit. He joked with his therapists, played pranks on his siblings, and charmed everyone who met him with his wit and intelligence. He was a living testament to the power of perseverance, of hope in the face of overwhelming odds. As Barron's story spread, it inspired people around the world. They saw in him a symbol of courage, of the unbreakable bond between a father and son. They sent letters and emails, sharing their own stories of triumph over adversity. On the one-year anniversary of the shooting, Donald Trump stood before the nation, his son by his side. Barron, tall and proud, leaned on a cane, a visible reminder of all he had endured. In a voice thick with emotion, Donald spoke about the journey they had been on, the lessons they had learned. He talked about the importance of family, of cherishing every moment. He spoke of the need for unity, for compassion in the face of hatred and division. And then he did something unexpected. He announced that he would not be seeking re-election. He had realized, he said, that there were more important things than power and prestige. He wanted to devote himself fully to his family, to being the father he had always meant to be. The crowd was stunned. Some wept, others cheered, but all understood the magnitude of the moment. Donald Trump, the man who had built an empire on his own ambition, was walking away from it all for the love of his son. In the years that followed, the Trump family underwent a remarkable transformation. Freed from the pressures of political life, they rediscovered the simple joys of being together. They took long walks on the beach, played board games, and shared meals without the constant interruption of cameras and reporters. Donald, in particular, seemed like a changed man. He was more patient, more attentive. He listened more than he talked. He found joy in the small moments, in watching his grandchildren play, in seeing the pride in Barron's eyes as he mastered a new skill. And Barron, for his part, thrived. With his father's love and support, he achieved things that had once seemed impossible. He graduated from college, started his own business, and even found love with a young woman who saw beyond his scars to the strength within. As the Trump family healed, so too did the nation. Barron's story had touched something deep within the American psyche, reminding people of what truly mattered. Acts of kindness and compassion became more common, as people realized that they had the power to make a difference in the lives of others. In cities and towns across the country, community gardens sprang up, symbols of growth and renewal. People of all ages and backgrounds came together to plant, to nurture, to watch as tiny seeds grew into something beautiful and strong. And in the Trump family's own garden, a special tree took root. It had been a gift from a well-wisher, a sapling grown from the seed of a tree that had survived the 9/11 attacks. As it grew, its branches reaching towards the sky. It became a symbol of resilience, of the unbreakable spirit that had carried Barron and his family through their darkest days. Years passed and the world moved on. But the legacy of Barron Trump's sacrifice endured. His story was told and retold, a reminder of the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. And as Donald Trump grew older, he found a new purpose. He became an advocate for victims of gun violence, using his platform to push for common-sense reforms. He met with families who had lost loved ones, offering comfort and support. He even reconciled with old rivals, finding common ground in the shared goal of making the world a safer, kinder place. In a moment of poignant symbolism, he stood hand in hand with the Clintons at a memorial service for victims of gun violence, a powerful image of unity in the face of tragedy. In the end, it was not Donald Trump's wealth or power that defined his legacy. It was the love of a father for his son, the courage of a young man who had given everything to protect the person he loved most. Barron Trump went on to live a long and happy life, his scars a testament to his bravery. He became a father himself, teaching his own children the values of kindness, compassion, and sacrifice. And every year, on the anniversary of that fateful day, the Trump family gathered in their garden, beneath the branches of the 9/11 tree. They remembered the pain and the fear, but also the love and the hope that had carried them through. As the sun set over Mar-a-Lago, casting a golden glow over the tranquil scene, Donald Trump looked at his family, his heart full. He had learned, in the most profound way possible, that the true measure of a life was not in the battles won or the empires built, but in the love given and received. And in that love, he had found a peace and a purpose greater than any he had ever known. As the years passed, Barron Trump's legacy grew. His story inspired countless others, sparking a movement of compassion and understanding. People from all walks of life, from all corners of the globe, found themselves drawn to the young man who had sacrificed so much. In schools across the nation, teachers used Barron's story to teach lessons of bravery and selflessness. Children wrote letters to him, sharing their own dreams and fears. They saw in him a role model, someone who had faced the unimaginable and emerged stronger, kinder, and more resilient. And Barron, ever humble, ever gracious, responded to each and every one. He visited schools, hospitals, and community centers, sharing his story and listening to the stories of others. He became a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, light could be found. As Barron's influence grew, so too did his family's commitment to making a difference. The Trump Foundation, once a source of controversy and scrutiny, underwent a profound transformation. Under the guidance of Donald and Melania, it became a force for good, focusing on issues of gun violence prevention, mental health support, and community building. The family poured their resources into research and advocacy, funding innovative programs and partnering with leading organizations. They convened experts from across the political spectrum, fostering dialogue and collaboration in the search for solutions. And slowly, incrementally, change began to happen. Laws were passed, policies were reformed, and lives were saved. It was a testament to the power of one family, one story, to inspire a nation to action. For Donald Trump, the journey of transformation was a deeply personal one. In the quiet moments, when the cameras were gone and the spotlight had faded, he found himself reflecting on the choices he had made, the priorities he had set. He thought of his own father, a man who had been distant and demanding, who had valued success above all else. He thought of the expectations he had placed on his own children, the pressure to excel, to achieve, to win at all costs. And he realized, with a clarity that took his breath away, that he had been given a second chance. A chance to be the father he had always wanted to be, the father his children deserved. He began to spend more time with his family, not just Barron, but all of his children and grandchildren. He listened to their hopes and dreams, their fears and struggles. He offered guidance and support, not as a businessman or a politician, but as a father, a grandfather, a friend. As the Trump family's work continued, they found themselves forming unlikely alliances. They reached across the aisle, finding common ground with those who had once been their fiercest critics. They worked with gun control advocates and Second Amendment supporters, with mental health professionals and law enforcement officials. They brought together survivors and families of victims, creating a community of healing and support. And through it all, they remained focused on their ultimate goal: to create a safer, kinder, more compassionate world. A world where tragedies like the one that had befallen their family would become a thing of the past. Years turned into decades, and the world continued to change. But the legacy of Barron Trump, of the love and sacrifice that had defined his life, endured. His story became a part of the fabric of American history, a reminder of the best of what the nation could be. It was told in classrooms and lecture halls, in books and films and songs. And as new generations came of age, they found in Barron a timeless example of courage and compassion. They looked to him as they faced their own challenges, their own moments of fear and doubt. They saw in him a reminder that greatness was not measured in wealth or power or fame, but in the quiet acts of kindness and selflessness that had the power to change the world. In the twilight of his life, Donald Trump looked back on the journey he had taken. He thought of the man he had been, the man he had become. He thought of the love that had transformed him, the love that had given his life new meaning and purpose. He thought of Barron, his beloved son, who had taught him the true meaning of courage and sacrifice. He thought of the countless lives that had been touched by Barron's story, the ripples of hope and healing that had spread across the nation and the world. And he knew, with a certainty that filled his heart, that he had been blessed. Blessed to have been given the opportunity to learn, to grow, to become the man he was always meant to be. As he sat in his garden, surrounded by his family, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that his legacy, and the legacy of his son, would live on long after he was gone. And he knew that in the end, it was love that would endure. Love that would continue to inspire, to heal, to transform. Love that would light the way forward, now and always. Years after Donald Trump's passing, the world remembered. They remembered the man who had once been known for his wealth and power, his ambition and ego. But more than that, they remembered the man he had become. The man who had been transformed by love, by the courage and sacrifice of his son. They remembered Barron Trump, the young man who had given his life to save his father. They remembered his legacy, the countless lives he had touched, the world he had helped to change. And they remembered the lessons he had taught them. Lessons of hope and resilience, of compassion and unity. Lessons that would continue to guide and inspire long after the last page of his story had been turned. For in the end, it was not the grand gestures or the great accomplishments that mattered most. It was the small acts of kindness, the daily choices to love and to serve, that had the power to change the world. And as the sun rose each morning, casting its light over a nation and a world that had been forever changed, the legacy of Barron Trump, and of the love that had transformed a family and a nation, lived on. As the world moved forward, the impact of Barron Trump's legacy continued to grow. His story had become a touchstone, a reminder of the power of love and sacrifice in the face of adversity. In the halls of power, his name was invoked as a call to action. Politicians and leaders from all parties and backgrounds found themselves united in their commitment to the cause he had championed. They worked together to pass meaningful reforms, to invest in mental health resources and support systems, to build a society that valued compassion and understanding above all else. And in communities across the nation, Barron's legacy was felt in countless ways. Parks and community centers were named in his honor, places where people could come together to heal, to grow, to find strength in one another. Scholarships were established in his name, providing opportunities for young people who had faced adversity to pursue their dreams. Mentorship programs were created, pairing survivors of gun violence with those who had lost loved ones, creating a network of support and understanding. For the Trump family, Barron's legacy was a constant presence, a guiding light in all that they did. They continued to work tirelessly in his memory, using their platform and resources to make a difference in the world. Ivanka became a leading voice in the fight for gun violence prevention, working with lawmakers and advocates to pass common-sense reforms. Don Jr. and Eric threw themselves into the family's philanthropic efforts, overseeing programs that provided support and resources to communities in need. And Tiffany, inspired by her brother's courage, became a fierce advocate for mental health awareness and treatment. She shared her own struggles and challenges, breaking down the stigma that so often surrounded these issues. Together, the family became a powerful force for change, a testament to the enduring strength of love and the unbreakable bonds of family. As the years passed, the world continued to change, but the lessons of Barron Trump's life remained constant. His story was passed down from generation to generation, a reminder of the power of a single act of courage to change the course of history. In schools and universities, his name was studied alongside the great heroes and leaders of the past. Students wrote essays and dissertations on his impact, on the way his life and death had transformed the nation and the world. And in the hearts of those who had been touched by his story, Barron lived on. They carried him with them in all that they did, in the way they treated others, in the way they faced the challenges and struggles of their own lives. They knew that, in the end, it was not the grand gestures or the great accomplishments that mattered most. It was the small acts of kindness, the daily choices to love and to serve, that had the power to change the world. And so, as the sun rose each morning, casting its light over a nation and a world that had been forever changed, the legacy of Barron Trump endured. It endured in the laughter of children playing in the parks and community centers that bore his name. It endured in the tears of those who had found healing and hope in the programs and resources he had inspired. It endured in the hearts of those who had been touched by his story, who had found in him a source of strength and courage in their darkest hours. And it endured in the love of a family, a love that had transformed them, and through them, the world. For in the end, that was the true legacy of Barron Trump. Not the tragedy that had taken his life, but the love that had defined it. A love that would continue to inspire, to heal, to transform, long after the final chapter of his story had been written. And as the world moved forward, forever changed by the life and death of one remarkable young man, that love endured, a beacon of hope and light in an often dark and troubled world.